Panthers, who are currently on their bye week, coming off a 31-21 win over the Cincinnati Bengals. So the 2-1 Panthers now sit tied atop a very jam-packed division in the NFC South. And we are joined by a prominent member of that team, Panthers three-time Pro Bowl tight end Greg Olsen, live from Carolina. First of all, Greg, thanks so much for getting up and being with us this morning.
You got it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
So, Greg, now your team sits. They get their second win of the season, somehow, some way, without your services. You've been recovering from that broken foot. First of all, tell us how that recovery is coming along.
You know, it's coming along well. It's obviously been frustrating now for the second year in a row to have the same injury kind of creep back up after you think it's long in your past. You know, when all off-season, OTAs, and minicamp, training camp, and had no issues, and you get to the first quarter of the first game, and you know, you just step funny, you make a bad cut, and you kind of have a setback. So it's something we think we can work through. It's something that, you know, is maybe a matter of more of weeks than it is months, we're hoping, and you know, just trying to do everything I can to get back out there. For the second year in a row, this is kind of uncharted waters for me.
I was watching the game when it happened. I saw the frustration on your face. I don't want to call it heartbreak, but it seemed like there was a "you got to be kidding me" moment for you after dealing with it last year. How is the rehab process different this year, and how long did it take for you to mentally kind of get over this again before jumping into it?
Yeah, it was funny. It was the last play of the first quarter, and I kind of felt something when I ran a route, and I was coming back to the huddle. We broke for the quarter, and we walked down the other side, and I was walking. I said to one of the guys, I said, man, I might have just re-broke my foot. And he was like, what are you talking about? I was like, I don't know. I tried to kind of run in place, and I knew, sure enough. And, you know, fortunately, last year I had the surgery, so I have the screw already in that bone. So there is some healing already and some stability to the inside of that bone that refractured. So not having to have the surgery again, you know, definitely puts me ahead of my timeline from last year. How far ahead is still something we're kind of working through. There's not a whole lot of examples of kind of foregoing the surgery route. So we're confident. Our foot doctor and our training staff is very confident we're going to be able to get through it. It's just a matter of when I'll be ready, and once I get out there, trying to stay on the field and play the rest of the season. So there's never a dull moment in the NFL, that's for sure.
Greg, it's always been one of my pleasures covering you. You know, I've talked to you a number of times through the years, you know, in Chicago and there in Carolina. You're one of the great leaders there in Carolina, off the field, Walter Payton recipient, and you and your family have made an impact there. Yesterday, the Carolina Panthers are in the news. A guy you're familiar with, a guy you've played several games against, and also the playoffs when he was in San Francisco. What do you make of your organization signing Eric Reed as a safety to join your team?
Yeah, as you said, you know, even all the way back to 2013, you know, we've played Eric in playoff games, we've played him in regular season games, and he was always a guy on the field, and football-wise, that was a guy you accounted for. He was a guy you noticed, his presence, his physicality, what he was able to bring, and you know, obviously we all know what's transpired over the last few years and what's gone on with him specifically. But it was nice. Yesterday I was at the facility doing my rehab, and he was in for his physical, so I got to meet him really for the first time personally, and just kind of welcome him to the team and try to give him a little bit of an idea of you know, what our team is about and kind of how we operate and what a great group of guys he's joining and what a great locker room we're joining. And I think we're all excited to get to know him. I know a lot has been made about what's gone on out in San Francisco with Colin and the whole thing, but you know, I know from a football standpoint, I think everyone obviously, without a doubt, we know he can help our team. And then from the personal standpoint, you know, listen, this is a very complicated issue. There's a lot of people that have very strong feelings, you know, about this anthem policy, but just more on a larger level have, you know, the social policy. So we're excited to have him. We know he's a very intelligent person. Torrey Smith speaks very highly of him, who's a guy I have a lot of respect for, who has a very clear mind and is a very thoughtful person. So Torrey, you know, vouching for him obviously goes a long way, and everyone you've talked to says nothing but good things about him as a person, and I think he's going to fit in our locker room really well.
Greg, as has been the case the last few years, this team seems to go as Cam Newton goes. At least that's what the narrative is as we start previewing this season, just because he tends to have, you know, somewhat up and down starts or middle to the season. How have you seen Cam Newton develop over the 8 seasons that you've spent playing with him? And where's his mindset? How is he looking coming into this year?
Yeah, I think he's gotten off to a really good start. Even our one loss now down in Atlanta in week 2, I thought he played really well. He was really efficient with the ball, kind of taking what they gave him. They played real soft. I know we didn't have a lot of our deep shots like we're accustomed to, but we were real productive underneath. We had a chance to have the ball there in the fourth quarter to go in and tie the game up. We came up short. But I think he's gotten off to as good a start as he has, and I think that's saying a lot. We've seen him play, football, arguably at the highest level for anyone who's been a true dual threat quarterback. He's not just a guy who's going to run around and make plays with his feet. He's going to stand in there, as we've seen now for 8 years, and deliver the ball from the pocket on time, in a very complex downfield passing route passing offense that Norv has installed this year. So I think a lot of time he doesn't get the credit he deserves for what the impact he makes on the game, and I think that's unfortunate. But this year specifically, I think his first 3 games has been really good. I think guys around him are playing well, and I think he's a big part of that.
You touched on something that I wanted to ask you about, which is the impact almost emotionally the team seems to get from him. When you look at Cam's raw passing numbers, he gets criticized a lot, but that doesn't include his rushing additions to the team. And I watch the Panthers closely. The juice you guys seem to get from him when he's going well. Can you explain almost his value from that side of it, from the intangible leadership and the tangible what he does as a runner?
Yeah, we've always said if he played linebacker or safety or wide receiver, and the energy he played with and the charisma and kind of the brashness, I think people would applaud him. But just because he plays quarterback, people aren't really accustomed to that. They're used to seeing their quarterback be very cool and calm and collected and kind of and that's just not Cam's style. And you brought up the statistics and passing touchdowns and yardage and whatnot, but you're exactly right. I mean, it's very convenient when people want to talk about Cam and the other elite quarterbacks in the league to leave out that he's rushed for more touchdowns than any player in the league since he's come in, more than any quarterback in the history of the game. His third down scrambles, that's just as good as a third down completion. He's converting first downs. He's moving the chains. So it's unconventional. We're not used to seeing it. It's not the traditional quarterback play we've seen across the league for a long time. But you can't argue that his impact on our team specifically and the impact that he's had in this league, what he's done in his first 8 years, you could say there's no one who's been able to do it in that manner.
Greg, I need your help. I know that you'll have a strong opinion on this. Based on me seeing you a bunch of times and your wife's influence, you're one of the best dressers in the NFL. Myself, I care about my haberdasher also. Cam Newton, can you explain his style to us? Please, help me out, because sometimes Cam gets me upset. You can't? Greg,
I don't know if anyone can explain it.
You go to college at the University of Miami, and you weren't just there. You fit in, okay? Explain this to me, man. You're a world traveler. Explain it to me.
I'll tell you what, I've seen a lot. I've been around a lot of different people. I've been around a lot of different styles, been in a lot of different locker rooms. There's one Cam, and I don't know how else to really describe it. He's very sure of what his style is. He's very sure of the way he wants to show up to games. Obviously, his post-game press conferences have gotten a lot of attention over the years, but that's just kind of his thing. That's what makes him tick. He enjoys it. It kind of fits him.
Kind of.
I don't really know what else to say about it.
All right, Greg,
I'll put it this way. I don't think I could have wore it. I don't think I could get away with wearing a designer bathrobe.
Oh, you should try it.
Hey,
try the bathrobe.
Can you imagine?
Please, when you come back, the first game back, do what D-Jack did with Fitzpatrick. Switch post-game outfits. Cam,
if you have 400 yards.
Exactly right. Cam, you and Cam about the same size. Cam wear whatever you're wearing, which always looks good. And you try on Cam's. I'm sure he's got an ascot. There's probably some velour in there. You guys should just switch it up.
Got it all. We go for 400 yards. That's a done deal.
Oh, he said it. He said, all right, if you help CC with his fashion, help me with my fantasy league. I picked Christian McCaffrey this year. I know Ron Rivera said he was going to touch the ball 890 times per game as the season progresses. That's why I grabbed him. How much has he evolved from year 1 to year 2?
Yeah, I think the last 2 weeks kind of show you all you need to see. I think that's a good pick first and foremost. You look in the Atlanta game. We don't have a ton of run game. We fall behind a little bit in the second half. We resort to throwing the ball quite a bit, and he's got I think like 14 catches. And then you flip it, last week against Cincinnati became more of a run game because we got a lead that we were kind of sitting on in the second half, and he rushed the ball 26 times for 180 yards and only had 2 catches. So I think with a guy like Christian, on any given game or a combination of the two, his total yardage, it's like we talked about with Cam. Everyone wanted to get on Christian last year for, you know, rushing yards and rushing attempts and all that, but you got to take the whole picture. And with Christian, it's touches and it's total yards. In some games it might be, you know, more receiving, more rushing, or vice versa, but overall his touches and his yards are the impact that he can make on our offense in you know, both facets of the game. And it makes it very hard for defenses to account for him. It makes it very hard for defenses to defend him. And I think we've seen that through the first 3 weeks of the season, just the amount of versatility he brings our offense.
Greg, you guys play in the only division with 3 MVP quarterbacks. You're playing in a division where all 3 teams with those quarterbacks have been to the Super Bowl. I assume that makes the season harder, but I'm guessing there are some benefits to going through that type of gauntlet, assuming you do get to the postseason. What are some of the pluses and negatives of how brutal the NFC South can be?
Yeah, I mean, the reality of it is pretty much what you just said. This is a quarterback-driven league, and if you look around, you know, certain divisions that have been dominated for, you know, in some cases 10-plus years, typically they're very top-heavy with quarterback play, and the other 3 or 2 teams tend to have a kind of rotating band there. And you know, the reality is in our league for the last almost decade, at least 3 of the teams, and now you could argue all 4 teams, have, you know, high-level elite quarterback play. And I think that, you know 6 games a year, your division games are going to be tough. You're going to have 3 on the road that you're going to try to go and steal a few, and you got to hold your own at your own place. So it leaves those other 10 games for what they are. But you know you're going to have 6 of the 16 are going to be tough. They're going to be back and forth. They could be high scoring. They could be low scoring, and that's played out over the last couple of years. And there's not a lot of divisions around the league that can say that on a year in, year out basis. But we happen to be in one of them. But to your other point, it prepares us. We've played in a lot of different styles. We've played in a lot of different, hostile environments. You go down on the road to New Orleans late in the season with the division on the line, or like last year we had to do in the playoffs, or you go to Atlanta with things on the line. I mean, those are hard places to play on the road in a dome. So I think that does prepare us for what's out there around the rest of the league. But, if you're asking would we rather play in some other divisions, I think we'd be lying if we said no.
Greg, you've been a dominant tight end in the NFL for a long time. Yourself, Rob Gronkowski, there's some others out there. Tell me, who are the tight ends that you like? Kind of give me your top 4 or 5 tight ends who you feel are the best in the NFL right now.
Yeah, I mean, you name 2 of them there. Obviously, what Gronk's been able to do in his career up there in New England with Brady is pretty special. I know he's gotten off to a little bit of a slow start after week 1 this year, but I think a lot of that is just, a credit to him and just how much defenses really game plan him. I don't think, offensively right now, New England is where they're typically used to being. So he's carrying a lot of that load right now until Edelman gets back and they get Josh Gordon up to speed. But as long as he has Brady, as long as the team has Brady, he has Brady, obviously they got a shot. I think what they do with Kelsey in Kansas City is pretty cool. I've watched a lot of what they do with him over the years since Andy Reid's joined them. And, with Tyreek Hill and Hunt at running back, and then Kelsey, what he can do, and now they add Sammy Watkins. I mean, they got a lot of weapons. So, complete opposite of Gronk. If you're going into a game to take Kelsey away, you got your hands full about 3 or 4 other guys. So I think teams tend to, play them a little bit more honest, and I don't think anybody's kind of solved that riddle, at least through the first 3 games this year. Before he retired, a guy, I know he doesn't play anymore, but a guy that I always mentioned, he was my high school, my recruiting host when I went to the University of Tennessee as a high school senior, was Jason Witten. I always, again, not the flashiest guy, not a guy that was the highlight reel guy, but just a reliable guy, a consistent guy. Teammates loved him. People around the league had a lot of respect for him. He was a guy I always kind of emulated myself after. I wanted a team that, the defensive coordinator comes up to you and tells you how much he appreciates you, but you're not the guy everyone's always talking about. You're not the guy, dancing and making all the scenes. That was kind of always something I modeled myself after. So Jason had a big impact on me in that regard.
Greg, just so people don't think you chose groceries as your decorative background for the interview with us this morning, tell us why you are here this morning.
Yeah, so I've teamed up with Walgreens and P&G. I'm sure just like you guys and all the folks watching this, I have 3 young kids. Our household is chaotic and hectic and busy, and you know, it takes a lot to run those houses. So with you know, teaming up with them, and they're, for the month of October, they're running a campaign called the BOGO 50 Blitz. You can go get any you know, certain participating P&G products at your local Walgreens, and you can get that same product 50% off. And you know, through the month of October, just to be able to stock up on things that we all know we take for granted on a daily basis that it takes to run our household, provide for our children. It's a really cool campaign. I'm happy to work with them because I know what it's like. I see what my wife has to do on a daily basis, providing for 3 little crazy ones, and it's been a lot of fun, and it's been cool working with them.
All right, Greg, just to recap, if Cam Newton throws for over 400 yards, you will wear a bathrobe to the press conference. Did we agree on
Whatever
that?
Cam was going to wear, he's going to wear.
Okay, we want to make sure we had that solidified,
Deal.
and it's out
It's on the
either.
record.
Okay,
it's on the
it is
record.
on record.
He's going to join his boy Jason Witten in the Monday night booth.
Give him some help.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Greg.
We really
All right,
appreciate it. Good luck with your healing the rest of the way. We got much more First Things First right after this.
Get healthy, buddy.